I get this question all the time. How do I defend the outside heel hook? I'm getting heel hook. Good to see you all. Let's begin. So today we're going to be doing some defense. Now, we're going to be doing defense to maybe a more advanced submission, an outside heel hook. I get this question all the time. How do I defend the outside heel hook? I'm getting heel hook. Now, for white belts, this is not a question you have a lot because we don't allow that white belts to get heel hooked. But I think it's something worth covering. So white belts, even though you're not doing this move to each other, a little bit of knowledge is going to go a long way. So we're going to start out nice and simple. We're going to start out with what would the leg positioning look like that he's going to give us a hard time with. And we'll go this way. And then we'll build from there. So he's going to wrap his legs around my body in some sort of way that he can control my leg long enough to break it. So that's what he's going to be doing. Then what he's going to be trying to do is expose my heel so that he can get my heel lifted up very high. You notice when he does this, it turns my knee inwards. He's then going to set his legs so that his hip can drive through the side of my knee as he's lifting the heel, and you're going to have to tap. You're going to feel pressure through your foot, and you're going to feel pressure through your knee eventually. If you don't tap, you get a whole bunch of damage and surgeries and bad stuff. So we don't want this to happen. Connor's good at doing this. Connor's still here? Connor's good at doing this in his MMA fights. And his last fight, his opponent didn't tap, and his opponent, he's probably looking at 12 months out with like every ligament in his knee broken from this same position, right? So I'm not trying to scare you guys, but understand the move works well. So you can't just sit here and just look at him and hope that he stops doing it. We've got to come up with a plan. Static defense isn't the best idea. Generally, dynamic and moving is what we want to be doing. He'll have his legs locked in a position we call outside ashi, where he's like this, or he might have his legs locked to the inside in a reaping situation like this. He might even have his legs in what we call a rimi-ashi grami, where his legs are separated and he catches like this. So all of these positions we're going to have a brief look at today, but we'll just first understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to catch underneath my heel with his forearm and take his second hand and lock in underneath. So he can lift my heel, which starts to twist my lower leg. Then he locks his legs in one of those three ways I just showed you, and then he drives his hips through the side of the leg while he's lifting, and I have to tap. If I don't tap, I'm going to hurt myself. So let's start out real basic. The basic idea is that I want to hide my heel. So the more I turn my foot in this direction, the more my heel is exposed for him to catch underneath. And the more my knee is at the ceiling all pointing outwards, the less exposure there is, and it's very difficult for him. So we're going to start out simple here. He's going to lock his legs in a rimi-ashi grami. So it means just one hook's on the inside and this leg's on the outside here. He's going to try to turn my knee inwards using his legs, and I'm going to try to turn my knee outwards. At the same time, I'll be pointing my toes and trying to hide my heel into his rib line. So for him to catch my heel here, it's quite hard. He would have to go down onto his shoulder and head and start to do what we call a dig. If I feel this from him, I just continue to start to come up into him so I can turn my knee out more and more and more. So when he tries to catch my heel here, it's pretty difficult. I'm turning my knee out and I'm pointing them both this direction. If you're doing it well, you might even find you get like a cramp in your calf nearly. So we're going to start out super basic. Then your partner can throw to outside ashi. Again, it's the same detail, it's just that his leg's not on the inside. He's going to try to expose my heel and go into a series of breaking. We're hiding heels. So as Axel tries to dig, I turn around the corner and I open my knee and I point both my knees this direction. If I'm doing this, good for me. If my knees point the other direction, you can see how exposed my heel is, and this is where you're going to get into trouble, and we'll go down that line in a sec. So we're going to start out super simple. I know I made that a little simple for maybe the more advanced people, but we want everyone to get dragged along with this session. So the idea here is that Axel wants to expose my heel, I want to hide my heel. That's our initial game. So when you're playing a leg entanglement battle with somebody, that's the plan here. You want to hide your heel. Now, whenever you're stuck on your ass, you're not very mobile, and the more you can heist to, say, your knee, or maybe even get to a standing position, you're more mobile. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So I don't really want to get caught on my butt too much. I would always like to build height if I can. But we're just going to start out on our butt because it's a bit more simple to learn this way. Now let's look at the idea of what heel slipping looks and feels like. If Axel starts to catch my heel, if he has a really good dig, high hands, everything locked up tight, there's definitely most of the time I will say, well, you can't slip this. You're stuck in a bad spot, you can't slip this. But if he's on his way and he's just caught your heel, rather than having to go into later stage defense, you can try to slip your heel. Now, if you just try to turn your knee external, and Axel has high hands here, you will load your own knee. So you've got to be careful here. So what we're going to start to do is I want to start to drive everything inwards. So I start to driving forwards and my knee turns out and then I start my slipping motion rather than just trying to slip initially, right? And what does a slip look like? I'm pointing my toes and I'm kind of shuffling my foot back and forwards and I'm trying to slip my heel off his forearm. So if you have a look at the moment, my heel is on his forearm. And what I want to do with a slip is I want to start to try and slip till I get to this. There's going to be pressure through your foot and your knee. And so the idea is, how do I do this without blowing my own leg? So what we want to try to do here is my partner starts to get a catch here. I want to start to put everything out towards an angle like this. So right there, my heel is still caught. I'm driving up and into him. And now I'm going to start to go forwards and back until I can slip my heel off his forearm. And now I'm safe and I'm back out of the heel hook. Well, I'm out of the dig anyway. If I just try to slip from here, it's hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put him up on his shoulder. You can also reach for his hip as you start to do this and drive him up onto his head here. And then you can start to go into your slipping as well. So now we're going to practice the idea behind slipping. Now this is a more advanced skill, so don't freak out. But if you understand the idea behind the slipping, if he does get a quick little bite here, rather than just freaking out, you might have the confidence to re-slip it just before it gets too bad. If he's got it completely locked and lifted and you feel like your leg's going to explode, we have to go into other escapes. We'll do that next. But I feel like things aren't quite right for him yet. I start to drive into a shoulder, I slip, and now we go back into attacking from here. Let's give it a go. So we're playing with this idea that we don't want our heel to become exposed or else we're going to get heel hooked. So we're trying to hide our heel as best we can and then escape. He starts to do a good job of catching the heel. We're looking at this idea of slipping. Okay, now you can use your second leg to assist you. Your second leg, when he starts to come around here and catch the heel, if you can put him out here on his shoulder, he can reach around here and it can feed in at his elbow, or if he's up on the elbow, you can feed in here and assist with the slipping. So you can use your foot, but if you're using your foot to assist, it's very hard to use it to start to turn out in a moment. So when you do things like this, like using your second foot, it might assist you in slipping, but it also means you're kind of stuck on your ass. So as a general rule, I try to slip having my leg up here, and if for some reason I couldn't slip, I'm always ready to curl this underneath and start to turn out. So if you hear me say the word turn out, what I'm meaning is turning and starting a spiral motion the direction he's applying the force. If I try to spiral the other way, you basically turn the heel hook on yourself. And you guys will feel this with your partner in a moment. If you turn this way, keep the heel high. If I turn this way, I start to load my own leg. If I turn the other way, I start to relieve pressure. So you could play around with using your feet, or some people like to reach with their hands. But any sort of static defense is not very good. So we're not going to really focus on too much static defense today. We're going to try and move to get out of here. So my heel's been caught, I can't slip. We're going to start to turn out. So I curl my foot up close and I start to turn everything this direction. Then we start to go to something that looks like this. As we get to here, I'm going to take his feet from this outside position and I'm going to force them through to an inside position. So look, his feet are locked on the outside of my hip. I start to come back here, I reach through and I throw his feet through. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get my knee either on his adductor or past his adductor. If my knee can get through towards the mat here, as Axel tries to break me now, there's nothing on the knee. He's just bending my foot at this stage. And he can start to put some pressure into my foot, but I can keep sagging my weight down and away, and then I can start to reach back and I can cut back on him and start to take top position. So anyone that's applied heel hooks will tell you it's really annoying when people use this as their defense option. So he's got an outside ash, he catches the heel, I realize I can't slip it. So I heist to a knee, and rather than leaving the legs on the outside, because here he can just lock a triangle and he can start to break me in this position. I'm going to throw the feet towards the inside and I'm going to heist into this position where I'm sitting my weight back on him. You'll feel a little bit of pressure on your ankle, but it shouldn't be enough to break you. As Axel puts a bit of pressure here, you know, it's not that easy and I can start to turn out. He's losing, the hands are low, he's losing the foot. And when I turn back in now, I'm looking for an underhook on that far side, which is the low side here. So when I start to come around and he turns into me, I can pin the far side. If you miss that, you might end up on top, but it might be a scramble. So now we're using a turnout to defend the outside heel hook. He catches my heel, I heist, I throw the legs in, and I start to get to here. take your time here. Drive your ass back into him. Because what he wants to do is he wants to recapture the knee line and stretch you out. This is bad for you. And you want to have the knee line free and be back here, and then we can cut back into top position. Let's give it a go. So that's all well and good. You start to go here. He catches the heel. Maybe you can come out here and re-slip it. He catches the heel. You're like, shit, I can't slip this. I'm going to have to start the turn. You try to go here, and you find that your leg's still getting broken. You can't hit the back step, and he starts to put good pressure through your leg. Obviously, at any stage through here, don't be afraid to tap, even if it's a match. Like, it's not worth blowing your knee for, unless this was, I don't know. I mean, people tap in 80cc finals, so I don't know. I don't know that there's any time where it's worth just destroying your knee, but hey, that's up to you. But definitely not in the training room. So at any stage, I'm ready to, and I would say verbally tap, so he can hear it. Something like tap is a good idea. I see people doing like little reaches for legs and stuff that's not very obvious to him, and people get their legs broken. So if you get to a point here in your court, don't be afraid to just say tap. So he starts to put heat on me here, and I'm gonna have to go through a series of turns. So I'm just gonna continue to back step my leg over, like so, and I'm gonna turn, and he goes back to braking, and I turn again. And the whole time we're going, I'm trying to turn faster and cause a misalignment. So remember what he wants. When we started out, we said he wants high hands, rotating the lower leg, and then he wants to wedge his hip on the inside of my knee so he can drive my knee external for the break. All right, if I misalign the knee, directly to here, I can get knee barred, so I need to be careful. But as soon as I slip all the way through here, this starts to become really awkward for him. He hasn't got the knee line, it's all misaligned, there's nothing going on here. He has to transition to something else. And that's what we're trying to cause. So a series of rolls is actually one of the least technical things I can show you, but probably at the highest level gets people out of the most amount of heel hooks. So if all else fails, just send it. Just start to turn and pivot. Turn. Already I've freed myself here. Okay, this is pretty hard. We'll try and hold it a bit better. When we start to drill this, you guys are all going to run into each other, so do the best you can. But we go here. He starts to break my leg. I go into a roll, tight axle. I go through here. It's still caught. Now it's free. And now I can start to turn out. Okay, so I'm swiveling out as I go. Let's give it a go. We've covered a few basic options. Then we've started to go into turnouts. Now, if at any stage you feel like your knee line is coming free, once your knee gets to about here, I'm in a pretty good spot. I can now turn the tables on him and start to counter. And I'm going to counter, and I'm going to start out showing you this as basic as I can. I'm going to back step my knee up into the pocket of his hip like this. Okay, so now I've scissored my legs either side of his legs. So you'll be able to just free the grip once the grip gets low. And we're just doing this in the most basic way. Now this way is not how I would recommend at a high level of jiu-jitsu people would do it, but we'll just start out basic. From here, I'm going to cup around his butt and just do a shoulder roll. So I'm just going to do a shoulder roll, and then all I'm going to focus on is pointing my knees at the ceiling and stomping my feet down on the mat. So his hips get thrown up on top of mine. So I start to get to here. So I use this outside leg to kind of widen and pull his hips up on top of me. So I'm pulling his femur here. So we get to this position, and you're on your way to your partner's back at this stage. I take my leg and I throw a hook in, and I stomp my feet back down to the mat, and now I've got one hook in. If I can reach up and get a seatbelt grip and throw my second hook in, I've made my way to the back. So I know this looks kind of crazy, but it's actually not that difficult once you get the hang of it. So I have to go into a turnout, and I feel like, wait a sec, that slipped. My knee is free. I can't be broken. So I put my knee in the pocket of the hip, and then I come in here and I hug around his butt and I do a shoulder roll. Stomp the feet towards the mat. I bring my hook in. I get a seat belt, and then my second hook comes in. Let's give it a go. Let's just understand a couple of things on the back take. If he has switched from a heel hook to an Achilles grip, where he's just wrapping around my leg, the back take will be difficult. Because when I try to go into the back take, he keeps hold of my lower leg, and I can't ever extract it to get into that back take. So just keep in mind, that back take works great off heel hooks, because he doesn't have the heel hook's great for braking, not so good for holding the leg. So once my knee comes free, I can start to go. Now we're just going to add a more advanced version. I showed you coming up, putting your knee in the pocket of the hip, hugging the butt, and then rolling. In reality, you're going to kind of just throw yourself into the position as soon as the knee comes free. So he catches my heel. I hit a quick turnout here, and I feel my knees free. I'm just gonna wedge my knee in that hip, and now I'm gonna go. I'm gonna tilt over onto my side, and I'm gonna start to throw him up into the position. So really the same thing, we're just blending it all together to make it a bit more realistic. And this will work if you're already up on a knee, and it will also work in the standing position, as long as I can get that wedging concept. So once you understand that, this is a really nice option. And this turns the heel hooking from being a pro for him to now he's getting his back exposed, or his back taken. So we'll just finish with this, where he starts to go to here, and you're now just throwing yourself into that position and going into our back take. If you enjoyed that video, now's your chance to learn more. Go to sydneywestonline.com, and there's a full catalogue of classes. If you enjoy my instructional style, it's all laid out there in front of you. There's lessons, there's rolling rounds, there's question and answers. If you want to get better at jiu-jitsu, give it a try.